Joe Gomez, the latest to fall victim to Liverpool's lengthening injury list. The knee injury picked up away on international duty whilst training with England. Welcome to the agenda here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Clarke, alongside me, Dan Kay, as we get set to talk about international football, quite frankly, its purpose during this of all seasons. Dan, it's gut-wrenching news. Another Liverpool defender going down with injury, and from what we're sort of hearing and reading between the lines right now with Joe Gomez, it seems as though it could be a significant one.
It does, unfortunately. It's you have to wonder, how many cats have they run over? How many mirrors have they broken at Anfield and Melwood in recent times? Because it just seems to have been one thing after another lately. And obviously, we believe he's having a scan today, and obviously we're waiting anxiously on the results of that. But it doesn't sound good. The fact that Southgate pointed out that there was no one near him when he went down. We've seen these kind of incidents before in games, and they tend to be nasty ones, worse than contact injuries, whether it's studs have caught in the ground or whatever. He did have a serious knee ligament injury literally within about a week of Jurgen Klopp taking over in 2015. Obviously, that he had a broken leg at Burnley in the build up to the Madrid in the Madrid season, wasn't it? And he missed most of that. So the poor lad's had wretched luck, and it seemed like he was about to, have the opportunity to really step up and be Liverpool's senior defender. It looks as though, Liverpool are going to be about for a significant period of time. We hope that's not the case, but I think we're already preparing ourselves for the worst. Yeah,
and it couldn't really have come at a worse time, of course. Trent Alexander-Arnold picking up that calf injury against Manchester City. That seems a lifetime ago now. And of course, right after the end of the last international break, Virgil van Dijk picking up an anterior cruciate knee ligament injury himself that looks to beset him maybe for the season at Anfield.
Yeah, it's, they say these things come in threes sometimes, and Liverpool just seem to be getting hammered in that particular area of the pitch. I mean, a few people pointed out that more to do really with the front three. Liverpool have been quite lucky with injuries over the last couple of seasons in key positions, but it seems like Liverpool used all their luck up, and it's all kind of coming to pass now. The only speck of light and hope is the fact that, and obviously we'll get onto this, is that because of the nature of this season, there, a lot of clubs are likely to have more injuries than usual. I believe Manchester City defender Nathan Ake picked up an injury pain for Holland last night. And, Klopp pointed out, didn't he, a few days ago, that this season, it's like every month is like December with all these games factored in. So, it's not like everybody else is going to be firing on all cylinders, and Liverpool are the only ones who are shorter players. But it's a real problem, and Jurgen Klopp is used to dealing with having to think outside the box and come up with solutions. And, this may well be one of his biggest challenges of his time as Liverpool manager so far.
Yeah, let's chat about international football then. That is going to be the premise of what we are getting into here on the agenda. And it just seems this year with the pandemic, with countries enforcing lockdowns like we're in one right now, of course, there are sporting exemptions that do go on, but players from clubs mixing and everything like that with 3 games instead of 2, for me, it seems mind-boggling really that international football is continuing in these times. And who knows, had Joe Gomez been at Kirby, he may well have been on a rehab day, a relaxation day, as opposed to a full training session as he was with England.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's only fair to point out, it seemed, because of, like I said, the nature of this injury, it's not like it's a muscle injury because he's been pushed too hard. It's a contact injury. It's one of these where, we believe he's caught his feet in the turf, which I guess could have happened anywhere. But the point, as you make, is that, I've thought to myself a couple of times, there's quite a strong case to say, bearing in mind, the different levels of the pandemic in different countries. Should football teams be travelling internationally? And obviously that would apply to European club football as well. We know that, the football industry, needs to keep moving for the sake of the viability of a lot of clubs. So I can understand to a degree why club competitions have carried on. And I suppose the same applies to a certain extent to international football, because governing bodies obviously have bills to pay as well, and there's TV rights connected with international football also. But the point, that they are playing qualifying matches for these nations, for the Nations League. But bearing in mind, we know the extra intensity that's been put on players. To me, it's mind-bogglingly stupid and really irresponsible to have factored in an additional friendly match. They're already going to be playing 2 games in a fortnight. Obviously, that's in addition to the packed club programs either side. So to shoehorn in a friendly match is absolutely bonkers. And I think questions really need to be out. And Jurgen Klopp won't be the only football manager wanting answers on this. Questions need to be asked. Who made this decision? What was their rationale? And it's not honoured. And I think other clubs, other players, as I've said, are going to bear the brunt of this. It's not acceptable.
Yeah, it is worth saying that Gareth Southgate actually sort of seems to be very understandable to players being asked to do too much. And former Liverpool defender, I'm sure he's probably thinking maybe he could have stuck around and helped with this. Dejan Lovren, of course, who moved to Zenit during the summer, he's been tweeting this morning, very busy on his social media account, and effectively saying that these injuries, albeit this one may well be a bit of a freak with, as you say, his studs catching in the turf, are all a result maybe of muscle and body fatigue, of being pushed too hard and too much. And for Jurgen Klopp, I suppose it's the chickens coming home to roost in the worst possible manner. He's now going to be affected with this, with a key player injured, but he's been beating the drum for some time.
He has, and rightly so. I mean, listen, we all love watching football, of course we do, but there has to come a point where you start thinking about quality above quantity. Football's played a really important part, I think, for a lot of people during lockdown, for us professionally, but also for us as football fans personally, and for all football fans to give us, a little bit of a diversion from, the distressing situation that we've all been in for all this time. But people have to think, that there has to be a bit more thought that's gone about, that goes into it, because this kind of thing was always likely to happen. I think a lot of football fans didn't really look at the project big picture thing that blew up a month or so ago with any great admiration or any great desire for it. But one of the elements that did kind of make sense was reducing the number of games. England, I think it's only really England and the Liga in Spain out of the major European leagues that still have 20 teams. And obviously, in addition to European club football and cup competitions as well, you can't keep flogging these players again and again, week after week, month after month, year after year, and not expect a depreciation in the quality of the football. I mean, that being said, we watched City and Liverpool on Sunday, and it was certainly until for the first 60, 70 minutes, it was a fantastic football match. But I do think that the kind of almost like the acceptance that came over both sides towards the end, that let's not push ourselves too far, was because of the nature of this season, and because they are being pushed to and beyond their limits. Just going back to Lovren, I mean, he must have had, I wouldn't say a wry smile, because I can't imagine he's in one iota pleased that one of his old teammates has picked up a serious injury. But it's one of those ironies of football, isn't it? That if he had stayed, he no doubt would be playing a lot of football for Liverpool now. But he didn't have a crystal ball. No one has a crystal ball. No one can see into the future like this. Liverpool, have been reasonably it's not like Liverpool haven't had any injuries in the last couple of years. There was a bit of a narrative that was put forward last year that Liverpool only stormed to that league title because Aymeric Laporte had that serious injury from Man City. Liverpool were about Alisson for quite a large chunk of the season, and some other key players as well. So that doesn't necessarily hold up. But in all my time watching Liverpool, I can't remember too many runs of injuries in one particular area of the team like this. And Jurgen Klopp is renowned for having a kind of quite a philosophical outlook on football and keeping things in perspective. And I'm sure that once the shock and I'm sure the anger as well that he's feeling at this situation subsides a little bit, he'll get his game face on and sit down with his staff and try and navigate a way through this for Liverpool. But it's not going to be easy, one little bit.
Yeah, there was a united front between Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola after the Man City game, saying that the 5 substitution rule really needs to be looked at and brought back in. And Richard Masters, the Premier League chief executive, speaking to the DCMS committee, I think it was on Tuesday, sort of said that's been looked at a couple of times and voted on. He doesn't see it changing anytime soon. I just wonder, with this happening on international break, whether those sort of cries may be heightened. And a key point I think that's been missing on that debate, Dan, just to add some sort of perspective in on it, is the smaller clubs, inverted commas, saying that it gives sort of the bigger clubs chance to use deeper squads. They've all submitted a 25-man squad to the Premier League. They're all working with 25 players. It's just keeping those 25 fresh and free from injury.
Very good point, Guy. I spoke to John Aldridge on Monday for his Echo column, and he made the point that obviously that is the counter argument that a lot of the smaller teams in the Premier League have been pushing. But as you say, every team has to name 25 players within a squad and can only use those 25. And the point Aldo made was that, all right, yes, obviously the richer clubs will have better quality replacements, but 5 substitutes would still allow I don't like using the phrase smaller clubs, but you know what I mean. It would allow them to at least rest their key players and not have to push them out again and again and again, whether it's giving them a rest some weeks or taking them off in some games. I think the other point, the other manager that spoke out over the weekend quite forcibly was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after United's win at Everton on Saturday. And Aldo made the point that United have done quite well. The point Solskjaer was making was that in the European leagues, and this has been the case, I reckon, for 20 odd years, the clubs in European competitions will often have their league fixtures either before or after move to either a Friday night or a Sunday, just to give them that little bit more breathing space. And they've never done that in England, and it makes no sense why they wouldn't at any time, let alone like a time like now. The problem, the Premier League clubs voted, didn't they, at the start of the season on whether to bring 5 subs in, and the democratic vote was that the majority said no. So I don't really see how that can be changed unless they have another vote, and the consensus does go that way. But it would be interesting if they at least put that back on the agenda for clubs, given that a lot of clubs are starting to feel the pinch, and obviously will do even more when we get it after the international break, when we get into December, because it's not just the finishing up of the Europa League and Champions League group stages. There are also, I think, at least 1, possibly 2 midweek rounds of Premier League matches before the Christmas programme. So everyone's going to suffer. And surely, at the end of the day, you're allowed to change your mind. The clubs might have thought that in August, but it's now November, December. Now they're seeing the impact of this unusual compressed season. You would hope that they might see fit to think again, because ultimately I agree with Aldo. I think it will benefit the smaller clubs, maybe not as much as the bigger clubs, but it's not going to hurt them. It's not going to harm them. And like I say, it may give them the chance to keep their better players fit, which ultimately will only improve their chances of success over the course of the season.
Yeah, maybe, who knows, like Jurgen Klopp says, a chance to actually think of player welfare for once and the care of the players rather than thinking of them like machines. But Liverpool know then they will be without Joe Gomez for some time, like Virgil van Dijk, who is already out through injury. Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, with a calf injury to contend with too. Good news maybe that Fabinho will return after the international break. But if you want more reaction to Joe Gomez's unfortunate injury, head to the Liverpool Echo website. We will have the latest news for you over there. And then on Friday afternoon, the Blood Red podcast will be back with you to talk through how Liverpool deal with this injury crisis. Do they turn to the transfer window, or who may be the alternatives within Jurgen Klopp's squad? But from myself, Guy Clarke, and Dan Kay, thanks for joining us here on The Agenda on the Blood Red channel. That's all for now.